Welcome to the Open Mike Podcast Show with Mike Midgley.
Hey, and welcome to the Open Mike Podcast. On today's episode, I'm super excited to be covering a highly relevant topic that's really sort of inspiring and motivating. And as business leaders out there, you are not going to want to miss this. We're talking about effective leadership and communication, but based in the science of human evolutionary biology and neurophysiology. Today's influencer guest is John Bates, the founder of Executive Speaking Success. And John is based out of Salt Lake City in Utah. As I work in businesses and I've built up businesses and I work in executive boards, leadership in all walks of life requires, great communication, connection, and interaction. And in today's show, John's expertise is going to cover this and so much more. And without further ado, welcome to the Open Mic Show, John. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm humbled to have you on the show today.
Well, I'm really pleased to be here, Mike. Thank you very much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. When I look at John's bio, I interview some seriously talented and successful and amazing people. And if you want to sort of take a look at John and what he does and how he works, I cannot... And I'm sort of slowing down for words here to make sure I choose these absolutely correctly. You guys were listening on the podcast, regular listeners, you're going to be saying, Mike, this is not like you, you're straight into this. The ones watching, you're thinking like, whoa, what's going on here? But ultimately, you've got to go and check out what, who, how, when John Bates does. This is phenomenal. And as I say, if you've got the next 60 minutes booked out, book it out. In fact, book 2 hours out and listen to the replay because it's going to be phenomenal. Check John out. You can see him at his website at executivespeakingsuccess.com. You can find him on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, John K. Bates, or John Bates. Just search that, or Expert Speaking Success. Don't worry, for you guys who are driving or listen to this on the Audible or one of the podcast channels, we will post all the usual show links on blog.thesuccessive.io/podcasts. And of course, you can listen to this on all the variety of other channels if you're watching this on the blog. You can follow John's work on hashtags. We're going to talk more about TED Talks in a moment or two, public speaking, hashtag leadership, inspire, hashtag storytelling, all those type of things. But I did promise you, and I hope I didn't build it up too much, John, but John's bio before we get started is a Hollywood Walk of Fame, a triple A list. I'm not quite sure. Just to sort of set expectations, guys, John actually trains people about how to become a TEDx speaker. So it's never about being a TEDx speaker. He's actually mastered the formula to train people to absolutely boss the TEDx. So it sort of sets the standard. But as a leadership and communication expert, #1 best-selling author, John Bates is wise to bring out the awesome inside every person so it can live in the world and make a real difference. Tell us a little bit more about that why, John. It's a stunning reason to not to exist, but to live life. And, like you, I like to give a lot back. I'm a big, believer in altruism and things like that. But I'd just love to learn, how that why came about and, why it leads off in your backstory like that.
Let me tell you something about that amazing biography too. Yeah. Because I pinch myself when I think about who I get to work with. Yeah. And I think it's important for me to just say that for most of my life, I was an entrepreneur and I had $50,000 worth of personal debt. Oh. And I raised several $100 million with my various teams, but I never had a successful exit. Yeah. So for most of my adult life, I was $50K in the hole, wondering what in the world was going to happen with me in my life. And then that all dried up. And I freaked out, and I looked back over my life, and I couldn't figure out what I had to offer. I thought I'm going to, be lucky if I end up as a greeter at Walmart, and nothing against that, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I finally realized that I had, I'd been an entrepreneur my whole life. I'd done a lot of public speaking. I'd done a lot of coaching of people. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And everybody that I asked that knew that would be the kind of person to hire me, like PR people, HR people, to bring me in to work with the companies, they all told me, don't do that. You'll never make any money at that. That's terrible. Blah, blah, blah. And so I cried for another month, but then I finally just said, look, I know that I provide value with this. I've seen the value I provide when I've worked with TEDx speakers. I've seen the value I provide to my friends who have entrepreneurial ventures. I'm just going to do it anyway. And for the first 2 years, I went further in debt. And year 3, I made more than I ever made in my life. Year 4, I doubled that plus. Year 5, I tripled that plus.
Wow.
And I've kind of been bouncing around up there. And it's not always perfect, but it's certainly a whole different life than what I knew before. And I think the big key for me, Mike, was when I was solely focused on making money. Yeah. Will this make money? I had debt.
Yeah.
When I shifted my focus just a little bit to what do I have that provides the most value for people? Yeah. I didn't make money overnight. No. It took me more than 2 years to even, start making money, but I finally am making good money now because I shifted the focus to providing value. And I had heard that a million times. But
never applied it.
And now I get it. Yeah, I just never got it. So that, and now I look at that list of people that I've worked with and, and by the way, money is important. The funny thing about sustainability is you have to sustain it, right? And that's being profitable. But when I shifted my focus to really what I'm doing, is it providing the most value I could possibly provide? That was the big breakthrough for me. And I think that's what had me now have that list of people that I've worked with that I pinch myself when I read. Well,
we're going to get to that in a moment, John, but you're absolutely right. I interview entrepreneurs all around the world, and there is never one that has just sort of been born with a silver spoon in the mouth and just sort of, taken mummy or daddy's or family inheritance money and made it happen. The serious success cases are the ones that's either been on the backside, been in the hole, as you call it. I love that. It's something that we use over here, 100 in the hole or whatever it would be.
Where was I?
And there's a great friend of mine, Jeremiah, who's out of Phoenix, Arizona, and he's all about serve to sell and that giving and that focus. And he really helped me sort of clarify my vision on that, because I've always about being giving back. Once I sort of reached a certain level of call it what you want, success, but with failures along the way as well. But ultimately, he really helped me focus in on that, give out, give, focus on the value. And then, and the best example I use is it's a bit like a car and a caravan or a car and a trailer. A lot of people are focusing on driving the car. If you just sort of take it steady and move it around and put it in the best position, the caravan follows, doesn't it? It just comes around, and that's when the money becomes automatic and that value catches up. So it comes after that. And you're absolutely right. The value is the car, the money is the caravan behind it. But if you're in that self-same place at the moment, like where John was, like where I was in the past, where you just can't figure it out, if you want to shoot me a message, use the hashtag TheOpenMike. You can leave a comment below. We'll get those questions to John. Or please go and message John directly. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to sort of give you some guidance and some help on that. So please don't sit there worrying or struggling. We're here to help, and this is what this show's all about. So thanks for sharing that, John. And it's humbling to know that as we're going to start moving some through these names, my palms are sweating as well here. So it's good to know that the good old rags to riches type of thing, does reward the people who give back. So that's awesome. So talk to me a little bit more about, the best-selling book that you've got, which, by the way, is available on Amazon. I highly recommend you get it. That's your amazing itty-bitty guide to being TED-worthy, which is there on the screen, which is fantastic. And what I love about this is, look at this. It's 30 pages thick. It's not, I'm looking, I've got the 7 Basic Plots book on my desk here because the mic stood on it. And if you've ever seen that book, it's like 3 inches thick. But this is like 30 pages long. But tell us a little bit more about that. Why that come around, John? And why you condensed it to just 30? And I'd love to know a little bit more about the origin of that book and its size and its flow. And, not why should people buy it, because either choose to do it or they don't. But ultimately, you could do a lot worse than spending your next few bucks in Amazon on this book. So tell us a little bit more, John.
maybe I'll tell you where this whole thing came from. And because, this 30-page book on some level took me 10 years to write.
Yeah.
I could never have made a meaningful 30-page book without spending that whole time figuring out what would go in that. And you've heard that saying, sorry, I wrote you such a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one. I just feel like people are in a position now where, we're moving a lot faster and it's very hard to get somebody to read through a full-length book. I've got one of those coming, but I think this on some level is more valuable because it's so short.
Absolutely.
And, why it's around TED and why it's around the neurobiology is it's the story of what changed my life, really. I was always the guy, as I said, I raised several $100 million with my various teams. I was always a very early stage entrepreneur, either a founder, a co-founder, or a single digit employee.
Yeah.
I was always the guy who ended up as the evangelist for the company. So I would go around talking to all over the world on stages and to the press and television and all that, and doing the communication and business development. Excuse me. And then, I was always the guy with the soft skills, and I was always jealous of the people with the hard skills because they got paid more, they seemed smarter, they seemed better. I'd go around trying to prove I was valuable while I felt like I was less valuable, and it was just... And then in 2009, I went to the TED conference for the first time.
Yep.
And I was blown away by the power of those speeches. I had been a public speaker my whole life, but I had not been doing that. And I became super excited about that. And I got very involved with the TED and TEDx community. And at one of the very first TEDx events, TEDx Santa Monica, I was volunteering for my friends who were running it, and we had this guy who had all the hard skills in the world and a super interesting topic, and I was very excited to see him. And when he got on stage and started to speak, he was so nervous and awkward that everybody in the audience, including me, just checked out because we all thought we were going to throw up because he was so nervous.
Oh, and so much value to give, you just couldn't get it out.
And I had seen that so much in my life, Mike. I was ready to cry almost, because I just seen that over and over and over. Yeah. Someone who had so much to offer, but just couldn't make that last 50 feet between them and the people they were leading or talking to or pitching or whatever. And so part of me was just really sad. And then the evil part of me, because I'm a soft skills guy, he's a hard skills guy. I'm like, ha, 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 ha. You can't do it, And as I was indulging the evil part of me, my friend Michael Weiss walked over and he said, John, we got to do something to help people like this.
Yeah.
And it was a liminal moment. I mean, the light went on for me. And I was like, if I just stopped honoring the chip on my shoulder and I started honoring the people around me, I could totally make a difference for someone like that. Yeah. So I went home and started working on what I now get to deliver at all these places all over the world. I called it the Speak Like a Leader Boot Camp.
Yep.
And the difference, though, was because of that guy, because of my commitment to people with the hard skills being able to really have their communication match their ideas. Yeah. I based everything I did in human evolutionary biology and human neurophysiology so I could show people not just what works, but also why it works based in science.
Yeah.
And what's funny is clearly I'm a soft skills guy because it just dawned on me the other day. I was thinking, a month ago, how incredibly effective all of this is. I was like, wow, this stuff just works with everybody.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh yeah, it's based in science. Like, duh, of course it does. But that moment that is a watershed moment for me. That was, my life went from one thing to something completely different because of that guy in that moment.
Yeah.
And so, that's where that all came from.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about that human biology and neurophysiology and the principles of leadership communication.
Yeah.
around that, that's where the light went on, and, obviously background, the entrepreneurial part of you said, hey, there's probably an opportunity here as well, which is, look, profit's not a dirty word. And like you say, as long as you're given the value in advance and things like that. And I love the point about but why it works, because, there's so much theory out there. There's so much surface level information. I love to get down, under the fingernails with it and understand the why of it, because I think if you understand the why of it, ultimately then you can either correct course, plot, or whatever. That's my view. I'm sure you've got a far better, more science version of that, but just tell us a little bit more about why that's so important, John.
So when I created this training, my father's was a captain in the Marine Corps, combat Marine in Vietnam. And wow. I learned a lot from him. And because I grew up in the Marine Corps, I never enlisted. I wanted to fly. They wouldn't let me fly. So I ran away with my rock band. But because I grew up in the Corps, I'm kind of like a 6-year-old Marine. I love everything about the Corps, and I'm always paying attention. And a while ago, the Marine Corps moved from decision trees to principles.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's brilliant. I'm going to do that in my training. So out of these neurobiology pieces and evolutionary biology pieces, I very purposefully created the training to be principles-based. And when people get principles and they understand the why of those principles, like why would I tell a story?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, what I keep hearing over and over at my trainings is, John, it's not like I had never heard any of this before. I'd heard most of this before, but I never got it. I now totally get it. I see how I can apply this. This has changed how I am going to do everything.
Game changer.
It's because it's principles based, and it is super obvious. Everything's really obvious in hindsight, but I just really don't think anyone's talking about it this way. Yeah. So people don't understand it. And the other thing is, especially with people who have the hard skills, they make their living by using logic. Yeah. And I tell people communicating with human beings is not logical.
Far from it.
It's biological. And when you understand the biology, again, you can make it logical. But if you go in thinking logic will win by itself, you will never be as effective as you could be, because logic is necessary, but it is not sufficient.
Absolutely. So I absolutely love that. I've just written it down. Dealing with human beings is biological first and logical second. And, I'll pull that out. So I promised you earlier about some of John's clients, and we're going to share a few stories around this. We had a bit of a chat, and I wanted to make sure I got this 100% right before I went live with it. John trains and coaches forward-thinking leaders at global organizations like Johnson & Johnson, IBM, but more importantly, to me, certainly as a bit of a space geek, and I openly admit it, there's 3 things that I love outside of work, and one is the X-Files, 2 is Columbo.
My brother actually has an X-Files tattoo.
Oh, yeah, I've got to see that. But I love the X-Files, I love Columbo, and I love NASA and space. And John's worked with NASA, but not just NASA, but active astronauts as well. And we've got to dig into that. And I feel like I'm downplaying the rest of these people, like Accenture, Boston Scientific, and things like this. But, O2, J Labs, IBM, Java, all these amazing global companies. But I really don't care about them too much, John. I'm more interested in the NASA stuff. But
it's hard to beat NASA.
Yeah, it's hard to be that. But John is regularly commended by his clients as one of the best and most effective leadership communication trainers and executive coaches working around the world today. And this is on a global stage. So just tell us a little bit about that client base. I'm only joking about the NASA thing, but I would love to hear that, and especially some type of sort of things. I think John's got a couple of things to share for the viewers on the video screen as well. So if you are listening to this on the app, head over to blog.thesuccessor.io/podcasts, because John's going to show you a little bit of things on the screen here that will blow your mind. And it certainly sent me for six. I had to go and sort of get refreshed before I came back on the show. I had to put my producer on just to sort of give me a minute, just so I could think about how we're going to play this. So really apologies. But tell us about these, John. What do you do with these companies? Why do they call you in? What do you deliver? I mean, obviously, I understand that in the 30,000 foot higher level what you do, but just drill it down a level too. Is why do they call you in? What do you do with these people? And then, what is the output type of thing that the benefits that these organizations are getting out of the amazing knowledge that you deliver?
So, this is a question that I'm working on answering well, because I do think that I get kind of put in a corner sometimes as a TED trainer. And that's great. I am one of the most prolific TED format trainers in the world. I've worked with a whole bunch of TEDx events. I've trained a bunch of TED speakers. I've also trained thousands of people in the corporate world in that format.
Yeah.
But I say what I do is deeper than that. It's leadership communications training based in neurobiology. And the almost the side effect of that is that people become fantastically much better presenters. But the real goal, I think, is that they become much more connected, trustworthy, powerful, influential leaders in any communication they have ever with human beings. And that's the one thing we're all doing all the time, no matter what vertical or country or company we're in. So, I'm going for very deep things with the people that I work for, and we get the things that are in their way out of their way. I give people a lot of mental jujitsu moves to, increase their influence and effectiveness and leadership quotient, if you will. And then the side effect almost is that we get fabulous presentations out of it. And one of the things I think is interesting is that over the 10 years that I've been doing this, I've come to realize that the TED format, I think, is one of the most powerful things that you could master as a leader, because it of necessity includes things like getting real and being authentic and being vulnerable. And I know these words are being tossed around all over. It doesn't take away from the power of actually being that. But if you try to do that as a manipulation, it will backfire like crazy.
Yeah.
But, that's the great thing about the TED format, is that it's such a vulnerable, honest, open, connecting format. And I love to work with people on their TED format talks, and one of the things that I almost always bring out in those is why they care so much about what they're doing. What's their origin story? Spider-Man got bitten by a radioactive spider and became Spider-Man, but that's not the real story. He could have gone and joined the circus.
Yeah.
When he was early on, when he had his powers, he saw a robbery in progress, didn't stop it. And that criminal went on to kill his beloved Uncle Ben later that night, the guy who had raised him, that he loved like a father. And that's why he became Spider-Man. And I get teared up telling you about that, and it's a made-up story.
Yeah.
And people have those stories all the time. That's why we do what we do, is because we care about it so much. But people resist telling other people about it because we don't want to look bad in front of everybody. I might cry, I might tear up, but, I might seem vulnerable. I think what we see modeled in the workplace is almost always not what works best when it comes to communicating with and influencing people. And it's often 180 degrees the opposite of what
definitely
works best,
Yeah, that's great. And, you're absolutely right. As you know, we were speaking to Leonard and Ryan, and, they're one of the best people in the world to come out and just say, hey, I sucked at this. And hey, as I say, of all the people I interview around the world, the Leonard and the Ryan sort of stories, which if you've not checked those guys out at Influence Tree, Ryan Fold and Leonard Kidd, you just go and check those out. They're awesome. Follow them on social as well. the way that they come across authentic, that's real authenticism. There is no, well, I'm going to put half a toe across the line of authenticism and hope it gets accepted. It's literally bang, here it is, and they talk about 5 different levels of exposure and things like that. And it's phenomenal. So go check those guys out if you want to understand that in a little bit more detail.
And Mike, I don't want to take credit for their book, but I am going to claim a little bit of grandfatherness.
Absolutely.
When I met Ryan a long, long time ago, we've been friends for a really long time, and I think he is a great,
he's an amazing guy,
good guy. Like, he is really who he seems,
Yeah.
And but one of the things that I shared with Ryan and his students is one of my favorite things to share, which is a quote from Les Brown, which says, people don't connect with your successes.
Yeah.
They connect with your messes. Your message is in your mess.
And if you've not heard of Les Brown, go check him out. He's an awesome guy. Another it's absolutely, you're absolutely true. And I'm going to go and re-pull that quote out, because I have seen that before. And it's amazing of all the stuff the books you read, the trainings that you take, the influencers you speak to. You sometimes forget the obvious ones, and it's a bit like the Napoleon Hill one, isn't it? Which whatever the mind can conceive, the mind can achieve type of thing. And it's that type of mentality of just, it's basic, it's not new, it's one of the original sort of quotes, but sometimes it's so easy to forget, and just using that as a moral compass sometimes can really sort of help you, along the way. So I'm getting to my favorite part here, John, which is tell me a little bit about the NASA stuff. I've got to ask. Just tell us about, I know, again, I don't want to sideskip some of the other stuff and things like that, but tell me how you apply this and what you did with the people at NASA.
Well, so they came to me, and the woman who now I believe is in charge of all public relations for human spaceflight said, John, we really need you, because if we can't make what we do exciting, we don't deserve to be doing it. And that communication and getting people connected to what's going on up on the space station and the huge things that they're doing that will have reverberations across all of humankind, that is big stuff. And it's really important stuff. But again, logic's not enough to just tell us, here's what we're doing. Oh, it's awesome. We got to connect with people. We've got to bring them into this and have them feel it and be a part of it. Otherwise, NASA's funding is going to get cut versus getting the funding again this year. So, there's so many reasons to be able to communicate well about these great things they're doing. So that's what they bring me in for. And I worked with a lot of different teams there. But I did get to go train all of the active NASA astronauts. And I got a great story for you, actually, because you've got a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to this. Yeah,
absolutely.
So here's do you want to hear this is one really great astronaut story.
I'm all ears, and I'm going to double record it just to be sure.
Okay. So I did a training at the NASA beach house, which we talked about. It's the one beach house left on that whole beach where the astronauts go the night before their missions to have a family dinner with each other and their families and just be with their loved ones before they go take that big risk and do that stuff. And afterwards, it turned out that there were a couple of astronauts in the audience, and they came up to me after the training and they said, John, we really like your training, and the storytelling stuff's very, very cool and interesting. But, we don't want to talk about ourselves. You talked about telling your story, and it's not about us. It's about the taxpayers who make what we do possible. And I said to them, okay, guys, here's the thing. You're right. It's not about you. But here's what I want you to really understand. I'm the taxpayer, and you are the one that gets to go up there and do that, and I don't. And I want to know everything. I want to know if did you have a beautiful moment, like a perfect moment? Did you have a deep insight? Were you ever scared? Did you ever mess anything up and learn a big lesson? Yeah. Did you have a deep thought? I want to know all of it. Yeah. And it's not about you. It's about me. And that's easy to see with astronauts, maybe, like they're doing such interesting things. But here's the thing, as a leader of an organization, I heard it said so brilliantly and succinctly by the woman who runs HR for Intuit. She used to run it forever. And she said, John, people want to know their leaders.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty obvious. I never thought to just say it so clearly, but that is so important. The people that you're leading that are following, they want to know these stories because these stories give them insight into your character and what drives you and what motivates you and what you care about. And that stuff is really important to us as human beings.
Yeah. Do you think, John, that, I mean, by the NASA and the active astronauts thing has just blown my mind and it's just phenomenal. But do you think that the fascination of hero worship, I don't know if that's the right terminology, and I'm slightly off script here, so I apologize. But we in the States you'll be following the major quarterbacks. Here in the UK we're following the Premier League. Maybe the baseball, and whatever it would be, and whatever sports. If I've missed your sport, I apologize. But the public are fascinated with world football stars or American football stars or baseball or NBA stars or ice hockey stars. Or do you think it's the same thing that people follow them because they want to know what the stories are? They want to know if they have a bad game, or is it similar? Is it different? Is it a different type of neurobiology? Or as a fan, we're big Everton fans here over in the UK, and we're fascinated by it. We buy the merchandise. We're talking about the transfers. We're second guessing whether we will or won't trade or sign somebody. All that's going off here. And then I look back and think, well, why? Why do football clubs, why do sports franchises, how do we get that buy-in? And is it the same thing that you're talking about, or is it something different, or as association?
Well, I would say that on a fundamental level, there certainly is a very big similarity and connection between all that. And I think that a few things come to mind for me about it.
Yeah.
One is we want very, very much to be a part of a tribe.
Yeah.
We very, very much want to be part of some kind of in-group, right?
Yeah.
And we have all kinds of those things. And by the way, that's a really great thing to find with a client or someone you're trying to inspire or motivate or influence. What tribes are we both part of? You and I are both part of the NASA geek tribe in a
geek club. Yeah.
Right? When I told you my son's name is Regulus because of the star, you were like, "Whoa!" So that's huge, and that's where we find connection, and that connection is super important in business as well, and in being influential and closing deals and all that. So looking for those ways where we're part of the same tribe, that's big, and we want to be part of those tribes. And then I think in terms of the hero worship, it's these are people who have achieved something that is very rare and special.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that I get super disappointed when these superstar sports players behave badly.
Yeah.
And I get they come from tough backgrounds, and I'm not making them wrong. I'm just saying it's such an opportunity because they have achieved something so phenomenal in one portion of their life. And I think that, we follow them because we want to know how they did it. We want to know their thoughts. We want to know the stories of what they went through. All that stuff fascinating to us. I was at an opening where they launched this thing called Dog TV. And I made I was the MC and I was going to introduce them. And I made the mistake of not thinking about it enough. And I asked them and I said, "So what's on Dog TV?" And they looked at me and they said, "Dogs." Right? And then I thought, oh yeah, what's on People TV? People. Like, we're fascinated with each other. Look at how fascinated we are with each other because we are used to living in such tight-knit, close groups. And, I think in a modern society where there's so many billions of people, I think one of the reasons Friends was so popular is because we felt like we were part of that group, and other people we knew felt like they were part of it, and we could talk about what they were doing. And it made gigantic groups of people feel like they were part of a small in-group tribe.
And they were sat on the settee opposite those, Monica and that in the apartment, weren't they? They felt like there was actually there. And, both you and I are old enough for this, but some of the younger audience, you may not be, but pre-Friends, there was a #1 best-selling TV show called Cheers, Ted Danson, Shelley Long, and you felt that was it, isn't it? And it's that same thing where you felt he was in the bar when Norm comes in, and, hey, Norm, and they all come in and they have the beer, and there's this sort of, Carla's giving, Diane this sort of grief about the opposites, and Ted stuck in the middle, and Sam Malone as his character was, his Ted Danson. But and to be fair, when did Cheers finish? It was about 1993, and here's a bit of a confession. I don't openly say this, but I actually sort of had a tear in my eye. I'm a 23, 24-year-old male at the time when Cheers finished, and I'm like, oh my God, my life's ended. Now, in the UK, that's pre-real cable. There weren't a lot of cable or Sky around. We've still got 4 or 5 TV channels, by the way. Maybe a couple of the odd cable ones going off. Sky was just about coming out, things like that. So then what am I going to do? My life has physically ended. And there was not like catch-up TV. You had to go out and buy it on video cassette or something if you wanted it. But my life ended when Cheers ended. I'm like, I have no idea, and I felt lost. So I totally get it. And maybe I'm just geeking out on that, John, I don't know, but
the conversations that you were able to have with your friends about these, fake friends, but I used to really disparage that stuff. I'd be like, rah, rah, rah. But it, doing what I do now, it makes me understand much better what was going on there and why it was so, why you would get teary and think my life's ended. It's like losing your in-group, and we didn't live alone in the woods by ourselves back in the day. If you got thrown out of the tribe or the tribe left you or something, you would die.
Absolutely.
Like speaking so scary, man. It's dangerous to get noticed by the group, Notice what happened to Jesus and Joan of Arc and Martin Luther King and Socrates and John F. Kennedy.
Absolutely. It's amazing. And you're right. I think I took you off script a bit there, so I apologize. But you was talking about that, about people wanting to know the leaders. And, I suppose whilst there's similarities in there, what do you think the biggest challenges for whether it's corporate America, corporate UK, corporate Europe, Australasia? What do you think the biggest challenges in those businesses? Is it because they get too siloed, John? Is it because there's so much pressure at that C level or senior management that they have to feel like they're delivering results and not barking it down? I know NASA and things like that is a more collaborative, teamwork and all the morals and standards that they play against. But why do you think it is that people like that? What are you seeing on the shop floor in these type of companies?
So from my perspective about the piece of it that upon which I'm most focused is that I think so much of what humanity is up to these days is letting go of the shackles of the past or the bad patterns of the past, right? Like the people like Dolph Lundgren, who did a great TEDx talk. If you haven't seen it, go find it, Dolph Lundgren TEDx. He talks about his troubled relationship with his father. And Dolph did not hit his kids. But I bet everybody in Dolph's family all the way back, leading up to his father who did hit him, got hit.
Wow.
And so I think that they're
breaking the chain there.
Breaking the chain. And I think we're up to that in a lot of different ways right now as human beings. And in the workplace, I think that there has always been this, I'm the boss and I've got to keep the distance and I can't seem weak and because that's kind of how it was. But I think that when you see the most high performing teams, that is not what's going on. The most high-performing teams are open with each other. They trust each other. They know each other. And so as a leader in an organization, I think there's a real pull from the past, if you will, to protect yourself and not ever show weakness and not ever talk about where you failed and what you learned, because that would mean you failed somewhere. Whereas I think what really works with people is to be open about that stuff, collaborative, share it, learn from each other. I mean, I think that being authentic and vulnerable and sharing the places you fell down and what you learned, it's really important. Got to share what you learned too. Not complain about I failed. But, that stuff it's probably one of the greatest leadership opportunities ever, because at the buffet table, it's easy to be a leader. I'll go first, I'll fill up my plate, but that doesn't make a difference. But going first when it comes to where you failed and what you learned, no one wants to go first, but everybody wants to go second or third or fourth, or like, we'll shut the bar down with that conversation. No one will forget it for the rest of their life, but who's going to start it? That's a leadership opportunity like no other, I think.
Amazing. You touched on the TEDx stuff earlier, and I know you talk about the Jedi sort of example. I want to sort of dig a bit deeper into that, and how that persuasion skills works in top teams. And obviously, I know you said in fact you've touched on it a couple of times. You got involved with the TED scene and the TEDx scene, and I remember speaking to Ryan, and I think he applied. I'm doing this from memory. It was a few weeks ago. I think he applied like 12 times and got rejected. And then I think it was lucky for him, 13, that he actually got approved. And so most people, not most people, that's incorrect. Let me rephrase. A lot of people who are wanting to progress to that level, are reaching for that level to become a TEDx speaker. But you've sort of gone beyond that and, took that and gone behind the scenes and now, one of the world's most respected TEDx format trainers. How did that come about? Was that another aha moment, or something that you wanted to provide value? Is it because it was associated with the work that we were doing? You got asked to go into there and help develop that. Just tell us that, because to me, to become I do public speaking, nowhere near at the level of you guys. I work for some digital companies, people like Ryan Dice at Digital Marketer. I did a keynote for them down in London in June this year, and closed out when I was speaking with Dennis Yu and people like that. But obviously at your level, you're like the next couple of levels, probably the 2 or 3 levels higher. And then the TEDx, I suppose, they go again to the ultimate level. But then you've gone, dare I say, stratospheric above that to get behind the scenes with TED. And I just wondered, what's the journey there? Help us understand that, because it's such a phenomenal feat. It's mind-blowing.
So there's a theme to my life here. I failed. I blew my first TED Talk so badly that it's just not even funny. And I wrote an article for Inc. magazine. All you got to do is search John Bates TED fail, and you'll probably find it. But I blew it on the TED stage just horribly my first time. Now, lucky for me, I got invited back, and I got to do, I got to speak at TED Active, which was a part of the TED conference, a few times, and I've spoken at a number of TEDx events, but that first time I blew it. And, I think that was a great learning experience for me. And so that was a big part of it. And
why did you think you blew it? I mean, I haven't seen it. I will go and watch it, not for sadistic purposes, John, but I want to see what went wrong and learn from that myself. But why do you think you blew it? Did you just fluff totally? And
No. Here's what I did, and I've talked about it in the article, so it's worth reading. But the fundamental thing that I did wrong, and it was so bad that it's not up at TED. So I have a copy. I can find it and let you see it. But fundamentally, it's easy to explain what I did wrong. The number one thing that I did wrong, that so many people do wrong when they try to talk at TEDx, is I wanted to go in and have this talk establish me as a credible expert in my field and, make my company look good. And just, it was me. And it's so embarrassing. It makes me sick to my stomach to say that. But that was fundamentally it. And then the other thing I did is I tried to cram, they gave me a short amount of time.
Yeah, 20 minutes. Was it a 20 slot? Yeah.
No, I had a much shorter time. Like TED Talks, the longest are 18 minutes. The shortest are like 3 to 4, Yeah. So that's what I had. And I tried to cram 10 amazing things into that time. Guess what? Nobody got any of it. I would have tried to do one thing, which is the coaching that you get, right? What's your one idea we're spreading? One. Even in an 18-minute talk, one idea.
Yeah.
No, I tried to put in just this big, long list of stuff, and it just didn't land at all. And there were other mistakes I made that I mentioned, but the fundamental one was doing it for me versus doing it for what I could.
Which is back to the value situation we talked about earlier, isn't it?
Yeah. So if people want to go speak at a TEDx event, a couple things to know is everybody that's running that event is a volunteer. So if you are a prima donna speaker, not only will you not speak at that TEDx event, you'll get blackballed in the global community. So don't do that. They're voluntarily giving you a global platform. Be thankful, be on time, get them what they ask for, otherwise it's not going to happen. And the other thing is, okay, you have a new book out, great. But if you go do the talk that you usually do, it's going to be it's not going to work. No. It's going to be a total failure. I think the opportunity for a TED or a TEDx talk is to look at all of the things that you've done in your life, that book you just wrote, the speeches that you typically give, and synthesize all of that and ask yourself, what is the one idea out of all this stuff and my experience delivering all this stuff and my passion for it and everything, what is the one idea out of all of this stuff that I could share that would make the biggest difference?
Biggest impact, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, and you might not even mention your new book. Who cares? If you give them something of true value, they'll go find your book.
Yeah, they'll be promoting. And do you know what? It's a little bit like, you said you looked back and you were embarrassed about it and things like that. It's a little bit like when you first go back to your first logo in your first business, and you think like, oh, did I really put that out on the first ebook? We were joking about it. In 2012, I wrote an ebook, The 7 Steps to Business Growth Success. And, now we have all our own graphic design team in our agency and things like that. They're producing stunning, NASA quality style documents and things like that. And I still have the first ebook that I knocked up on an Apple Pages myself with no design skills. And I look back at it and I am absolutely horrified that we actually led with this as one of the key funnel drivers for leads in our business at the time. But it's so relative. It's the content in there, but it sucks. But, you learn from it and you develop. And I said to Jamie, don't laugh. You were still at school when I did that. Don't laugh, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be where we are today, type of thing.
And Mike, here's the thing. I love this saying. A friend of mine, James Malinchak, says this all the time. My crappy ebook is way better than your no ebook.
Get it. Absolutely.
There you
Perfect.
Go, you did it, and you're right. It's what got you here.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit more just on your background, John, if I could. Let's just go back nearly 20 years to the dot-com bubble. And, bigwords.com and things like that. And here in the UK, and again for the UK audience, there was a lot of things flying out, what's in your handbag.com and this.com. And of course, that all exploded and went south. Where, obviously John's connected very well in the Silicon Valley, having raised hundreds of millions of dollars. But in the UK, it was still, people were putting millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds into these sort of businesses that had no IPR, they had no nothing, they just literally got a domain name, and they were sort of coming up for this, early aggregator sites, if you want to call it that. And obviously we had a hell of a lot, like you guys in the States, did burnouts and a lot of money lost, and risk management and due diligence for investing just went through the floor. It just didn't happen. And it's as if everybody seemed to be fearful of missing out. I'm just going to put 20 million or 30 million or 100 million into this because it might or might not be the next big thing. Whereas today, well, even not today, but even after that, people were saying, well, let's go back to the correct due diligence. What's the revenue model? What's the opportunity? What's its lifespan? All that type of things. But I'd love to just tap into your brain and understand what it was like in your area when you had that outage, if we call it that, in the dot-com bubble. And also, if you could just touch on some tips if people want to get better in Silicon Valley, and is there a way, not a way to get ahead, but maybe some things to sort of make some traction there? Everybody talks about how easy it was to raise money back then. Yeah, well, there was a lot of money chasing things, but there were so many people with things, right? So I think it wasn't as easy as everybody thinks it was. No. But one of the big things of that time is
this was a big lesson for me. Our investors told us, and we thought they knew what they were doing, and like they did, but we all turned out to be a little wrong in ways. They told us, look, as long as you grow and grow market share, we can get you more money, right? So don't worry about being don't be stupid, but don't worry about being profitable right now. Grow and grow market share, because first mover advantage seemed like the only thing that mattered, because the internet moved so fast. And the minute that you got past a certain point with how many people were using you, Google just crushed Yahoo, right? They were kind of neck and neck, and boom, So it was just a rush to get users, because you could figure it all out later, right? So that was one of the big mistakes we made, although I don't know how we would have done much different. But then when the market turned, they were like, we can't get you more money. They're like, sorry. And then, I was not very sophisticated about it at that point. I just took that very deeply, and I went into a corner and cried and felt ashamed and angry and hurt. And I almost died of an autoimmune disease out of that experience. And I was, because I was sleeping 4 hours a night and just stupid, right? Don't ever do that. If you win the contest, who slept less last night, rethink it. That is not worth winning.
You're not winning, you're losing, aren't you?
Yeah, and you're taking it out of your life, and you're taking it out of your decision-making abilities. If you're sleeping that little, you're making bad decisions, I guarantee you. But I almost died of that. And it was a big wake-up call for me. And I looked at my life and I thought, wow, I have been being really selfish and really small. My context is I'm going to succeed, and opportunity only knocks once, So no wonder I almost died when I failed at my one opportunity. And I kind of had a conversation with the universe and said, if I get out of here, I just want to make a difference.
Yeah.
Forget all of this selfish stuff. I just want to make a difference. If I can live through this, I promise you that will be my focus. And I got to walk out, and I was not okay for a long time. And it's still have some issues with it, but not nearly as bad as it was. And my context now is I just want to make a difference. And that's where I make my decisions from. And it is a completely different life.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I think is interesting about Silicon Valley is I had a friend who was at a panel of these people who represented billions of dollars. Yeah. And they were doing kind of a pitch fest. And then they would ask people questions after they pitched. And one of the guys came up, gave a really interesting pitch. And then one of the VCs, who just big company, said, okay, so that's great. Have you ever failed? And the guy looked at him and said, why, no, I've never failed. And the guy said, okay, well, then we're definitely not investing in you, because we don't invest in anybody who hasn't lost at least $1 million, because we don't want to be those guys.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Isn't that just a different perspective than maybe a lot of the world has on things?
That's amazing. So literally the VC said, unless you've lost $1 million, we ain't going to invest, because you've got to find all the creases out so we're not going to lose again. Amazing.
Yeah. Pretty counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, but it's relative, isn't it? Because, with the VCs, and I'm not sure what the ratios are these days. It's changed from when we raised capital here in the UK. But whether they invest in 10, 5 lose, 2 might break even, 1 might make it, and then 2 might knock it out of the park type of thing. And, it's a risk balance across the portfolio, isn't it? But yes, amazing insight. That's amazing insight. And I think my notepad's full already. So just as we head into these 5 questions, John, because I want to get down to these points as well. As I say, if you want to learn more, head over and check out John's book on Amazon. It's your amazing itty-bitty guide to being TED-worthy. And, as I say, go and check out John's blog, John Bates TED Fail as well, because again, it's all about learning. And, success comes from learning. And I think that, when we're speaking about, I was speaking to a guy called Mia Matesky, and he's got a business called Fail Coach. And he's a Slovakian, he's got an office over in Pittsburgh and things like that, but a Slovakian guy, a 50, 60 million pound property portfolio when the world went bust in 2009. And he went from having a $20 million net worth to a $5 million bankruptcy overnight when the bubble burst. And how he came back, that's an amazing story. And, it's just wow. And I think he has a motto about fail fast, fail forward. And you've got to do that. So, if you're out there having a tough time, we've all had it. We've all made $1 million, lost $1 million, made 100 grand, lost 100 grand, made 10 grand, lost 10 grand. Doesn't matter what the number is. That's irrelevant. But learn from it. And personally, I've had a couple of 6-figure exits and a 7-figure exit throughout my business career. But I also lost the business, at the time, a £12 million real asset finance business in 2012, which at the time, at the UK sterling to dollar rate, John, it's about 1.7, 1.8, so about a $20 million business I lost. And I learned so much more out of losing that business about myself, about leadership, about making decisions. And I even wrote a blog about it recently. Sorry for the slight pitch here. But I wrote a blog called The Stupidity of Now. And it's where entrepreneurs sit in that moment. Hey, we just made 200 grand this month. Yeah, let's go and get new cars. Let's get new offices. Let's get new Macs. Let's get new microphones. Let's have a pay rise. And the next month, they missed the target by 200 grand and then they're back in the hole. And it's the stupidity of now decisions that entrepreneurs continue to make. But if you don't learn from them, like John said earlier, what did you learn from it? What did you learn from it? Well, hey, I'm not going to do that again. And now you can see, I don't know if you see this, John, and I don't have a crystal ball, but when I get involved with businesses, sit on board, coach people, work with my agency, I can see the early warning signs and I get that feeling in my stomach and I think, this ain't going to go well, and it's like, stop. And sometimes people say, hey, Mike, I thought you were an entrepreneur and, you look a bit risk averse here. I'll say, no, we need to just take a deep breath. We need to get back onto the seat, have a more holistic view on this, and then let's either see how it plays out or start to plant some stakes to signpost ourselves around some of these minefields, because I'm going to tell you, we walk through there, we're going to get our feet blown off. Because, and I can see that now, and it's like not a sixth sense in everything, John, but it's those learning experiences that you have to go through. And, losing a $20 million finance business, okay, I could sit there and say, well, we were a finance business when the world went bust. What did you expect? But no, I took personal responsibility. I was the CEO. I led that business in. We were too highly geared. We went boom. And ultimately, the fallout of that took me 18 months to recover from that, John. And I don't ever think I recovered from it. It's still there. And it's a bit like when Harry Potter pulls that thing out in the wand, and it's like, whoa, and it's an amazing feeling not to be right, because we're not right all the time. We learn every day, but it's amazing how you can see those disasters happening. And, for the community members, go and check out the Stupidity Now blog. It may ring some alarm bells to you.
Well, and Mike, when we talk, we're going to do a little bit after this for your community members, and I'm going to share with you the physiology of that feeling you get. Okay.
That's amazing. I'm really looking forward to learning for that. So, John, I've got to ask, before we leave the NASA thing and go into the questions, right? You showed me something off air earlier. And again, for you guys,
probably my most prized possession.
And we're going to dip deep, and here it is. This is let me pass over to John. John can explain it far better than I ever could.
So this is not something I usually tell people. This is the NASA challenge coin from the astronaut office. And after my training, they gave this to me and told me that I was now a trusted member of the NASA astronaut family. And I actually burst into tears and stood there and sobbed for a second. I was so honored and grateful. And this is, that's probably my most prized physical possession that I have.
Amazing. And you showed us a couple of things. Now, we've all heard of the Navy SEALs, and obviously John talked about his background with his family being in the Marine Corps and things like that. John, just quickly tell us about the assignment, mission, I don't know, maybe a bit of a pun there, but on a more serious note, just tell us how you got involved with the team who look after the SEALs, and share with us a couple of those memorabilities. And I think this shows the testimony about the impact, and I use impact very prominently there, impact that John's having with his clients, and why this content is valuable. And when I said at the beginning, go back and listen to it again. In fact, listen to it 3 times, because you're going to pick so much out of this. One of my jobs here is, I mean, right at the forefront of this type of stuff, interviewing, and I've got to concentrate, I've got scripts, I've got to balance, I've got to keep the time clock going, and things like that. And for me, I learn far more out of listening back to people like John and learning from them myself. And I see this as a public service to you guys. So please go back and listen to the value that John's giving here, and the appreciation that John's clients have. And when NASA start giving you recognition, when the US government and the Navy SEALs start giving you recognition, there is something there that us as entrepreneurs on the baseline and trying to get up there can learn from. So John, share with us a couple of items as well, which I know are very personal and precious to you, the team, and just tell us a little bit more about those.
Yeah, these are probably the top 3 things that I own. So I got to work with the Navy Special Operations Explosive Ordnance Disposal Teams, and they are the ones that go with the Navy SEALs, and they go in before the Navy SEALs and make sure there are no explosive devices or that, so they take care of the Navy SEALs. And they are a brilliant bunch of guys, really, really dedicated, and they've got to communicate in ways with people from other countries. They've got to get people to go into harm's way and keep a cool head and defuse bombs. They're even trained to defuse nuclear bombs. And so for them, communication is, they're very, very clear on how important communication is. And so I got to do a 2-day training for Group 1, and it was fabulous. I love those guys, and the Commodore is awesome. Keep your eye on him. But at the end of the training, they gave me this challenge coin.
It's amazing.
And, that's Group 1's symbol there.
What does the 061 mean at the back, John? Sorry, I missed that the first time you showed me. What does the 061?
Coin number 61.
Oh, it's as simple as the minted number. I didn't know if it was some type of regiment or code.
They're all individually numbered.
So there's not many of those around.
Not that many. Yeah, no, you can't get that at the gift shop either, I think.
And they helped you with something else as well, I understand.
Yeah, so this is, they know that I'm a geek and kind of an outdoors guy and stuff. So this is an explosive ordnance disposal knife by Benchmade. And it is a fabulous,
amazing
piece of equipment. And it has their logo on it. And then it says, thanks for helping us communicate like Yoda. And I could tell you real quickly why they wrote that. Should I tell you real quick?
Please.
One of the things that I tell people, and I got this from Nancy Duarte, whom I love, she tells people, don't be the hero of your own talk. Make the audience the hero. Yeah. Don't be Luke, be Yoda.
Perfect.
So that's what they mean by that.
No, that's amazing. And thank you very much for sharing that, because I know they are personal to you. And, to achieve, the recognition of 2 organizations, it doesn't matter where you are in the world.
I respect.
That's the pinnacle. So, John, thank you very much indeed for sharing those. Couple of, as we start to wrap out on the show, I'll just try and cover the questions, because I think there's a lot more value in the backstory and the bio and the journey and the stories and, than sometimes some of the actual questions. But I've got a few to run through with you. What is the most important thing to remember about, effective leadership communication, when you're talking about it being based around the human, biology? And this is one that I may struggle with, but the palomammalian brain versus the neocortex. I hope I got that somewhere close. I've been practicing it for about 3 hours before the show. And it may sound like a little bit of an outlet, but a lot of the things we've talked about goes back to these type of roots and disciplines and questions, doesn't it, John? So just tell us a little bit more about that. Well,
so this is where your gut feeling comes from. So I think this is a good place to share that. I'll be as quick as I can. Yeah. If you look at a cross-section of a human, and this is the fundamental thing, this is the fundamental thing. There's a lot of ways this plays out, but this is the fundamental thing. If you look at a human brain cross-section, you'll see the brain stem and the midbrain. And together they form what's called the paleomammalian brain, the limbic system, or the emotional brain. 3 names, same thing. ancient brain, been around for a really long time, charged with keeping us alive. Yep. It has access to reality on a very deep level. It sees things, it smells things like pheromones, sees facial micro expressions, notices patterns in things, hears things that we will never, ever consciously notice. Because it's been around so long and it's so dialed into reality, but it doesn't have access to language or logic or reason. Right. That's in the neocortex, the new brain wrapped around the old brain, right? Yeah. And so the way that our old brain speaks to us is through gut feelings. Right. So when your hair stands up on the back of your neck looking into the elevator, don't get in there with that person. If they're nice, they wouldn't want you to do it. And if they're not nice, then you don't want to be in there. Who cares what they think? If you get that signal, it's real. It smelled the pheromones or something. So those gut feelings are very important and they're good information, but it can't talk to us logically with language because it doesn't have that stuff.
Yeah, it's not
that we live in our logical brain, right? Oh, John, but I weigh things out. I'm going to check the boxes and make a logical decision. Well, you might do all that, but you're not going to make a logical decision because when I put you in an fMRI machine and watch you in real time make a decision, boom, your ancient brain fires first, making the decision. And then right after that, neocortex fires, agreeing with or disagreeing with the decision, but not making it. Now, here's how this looks on the ground, okay? In play on the court. Do you like the product? Oh, yeah, I like the product. Do you think it's priced right? Yeah, certainly. It's good price. It's fair. Do you think it would make a difference for you to have it? Why, yes, certainly. Well, do you want to sign the check and we'll start delivery? No, we're not ready. We want to think about it a little more. Okay, what just happened? People get upset about this, right? They're like, were they lying to me? No, they weren't. Here's what happened. Watch. It becomes very obvious now in hindsight. Yes, 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 no. Logic, 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 emotion. We did not make the emotional connection, so the logical brain could not get through the ancient brain. It is the thing that has its hands on the steering wheel. It says yes or no.
It's the boss.
Check, yeah. So, fundamentally, if you don't have an emotional connection of some sort, none of your logic matters anyway.
It's amazing. And thanks for sharing that. It's just absolutely blown my mind because it's so right. And I can visualize in real situations where that's happened all the time,
my jaw dropped. This changed everything about how I approached what I did.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I know another incredibly important, but very often, not discussed aspect of effective leadership and communication, based in the human neurobiology, is mirror neurons. Talk to me a little bit about that, and in a similar type of way that you've just explained it. Because what I loved about what you did on the first one, you took a really and if I get the elephant out of the room, a lot of the people saying, Mike, polymer mammalian brain versus neocortex. What the hell does that mean? But what you managed to do there, John, is you brought it down to my 5th grade level, which is awesome. I get it. I understand it. And not only am I practicing saying that thing, and I've probably said it twice wrong now, but I understand it. So again, when you talk about mirror neurons and things like that, some of the listeners might be like swerving off the road and, hopefully crashing the car, hopefully not, but, pull over and be safe, please. But ultimately, tell us a little bit more about that and why that's so important.
Someone just got a Nobel Prize for their work on mirror neurons. And what mirror neurons are is super simple. They're neurons that we have in our body that have us feel how we see other people feeling. So if someone walks in the room and they're happy, well, we're happy. We don't even know why, but they're happy. So we all of a sudden start to feel happy. And if they come in sad, we start to feel sad. What's wrong? We don't even know what's wrong yet, but we're feeling sad for them. If I were doing a cooking show, like let's say we were talking about cooking instead, and I had big purple carrots here, and I had a big old butcher knife, and I'm chopping up the purple carrots, and I'm telling you about the benefits of the anthocyanins. Okay, now, notice I don't have purple carrots. I don't have a big old butcher knife, but you jumped.
Yeah.
You have mirror neurons, and I bet people listening jump.
Exactly.
That's how powerful mirror neurons are. It is scientific proof for you get what you put out. So here's the thing. First of all, those people who think everyone's grumpy, we're not grumpy. We're just grumpy when they show up. They walk in, everybody gets grumpy. The minute they leave, we're all fine again. But they think everyone's grumpy everywhere they go because people are mirroring them.
Yep.
So remember, you are being mirrored way more than I think we're conscious of. When you raise your hand, when you stand up, when you're the one talking, when you're the boss, they're mirroring you all the time. That's what's wrong with some of these big companies. It's not really the employees, it's the leadership, and that just goes down, blah. Same thing with great companies. Like, look at Richard Branson. His companies are freaking fabulous because he's fabulous.
Yeah.
I've met that guy. That guy is wonderful.
Yeah, it's something special, isn't he?
He really, really is. And look, it shows all the way down in his companies because we're always mirroring each other.
Yeah, and it's slightly different. Just on the Richard Branson thing there, John, my old non-exec Bill McGrath, he used to be the chief exec of Wix, like the DIY chain. He was on Barnes & Noble's board, British diaspora, serial FTSE 100 chair guy. Bless him, Bill's no longer with us, but I learned so much from him. And he always used to say, companies rot from the top. They're not like a company. And he says that's what Richard Branson doesn't do. He promotes and drives from the top, but they rot from the top. And it always sticks with me, that saying, and you think, I do that from there. So it's amazing. So yeah, no, that's brilliant. And I get it. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, the jump thing is it's that suspense. Yeah.
Here's the thing, Mike, when you're on stage, especially, but anytime you're talking to people, one of the things that just completely changed my presenting ability was when I took on that they're mirroring me. Yeah. I don't have bad audiences anymore because I give them something good to mirror. And if it looks like they're turning into a bad audience, I don't blame them. No. I look over here, I'm like, whoa, where am I going wrong? And I get back on track and I give them something great to mirror. And I always 100% have great audiences.
Yeah.
I'm also clear all those bad audiences I had before, that was me.
It is. And I say, if you listen to the first 10 episodes of the Open Mic Podcast, it sucks because we were working it out, we were figuring it out, we didn't have it right. The second batch came in, we got better. Then the third batch, we started to nail the format and the formula, and then we get into a level now where we're getting great people and A-list people like yourself on the show globally, and but it takes time to work it out. But I didn't go back and say, hey, this podcasting sucks and it's rubbish and everybody's out, the guests were bad. No, it wouldn't be, exactly. So I get it, and it's so many light bulb moments there that just think, yeah, John's telling me real stuff here, so that's amazing. So we've talked so much in the podcast about stories, John, and not that they're actually fluffy at all, but why do stories matter so much to people?
Okay, so this is a really great question, especially in business, because I think one of the things I just hear over and over and over is, John, we only have so much time when we're pitching. We can't tell a story. And, stories, they're fluffy. Like, what do you mean tell a story? Like, people with the hard skills have definitely resisted telling stories in my experience. Now, here's the thing. All throughout history, all throughout our entire existence as a species, up until Google, the printing press, how did we communicate everything of real importance?
Yeah.
It wasn't... Stories. It wasn't through email, and it wasn't like we could give each other big long lists of stuff about how to brew beer or how to build a cathedral or a temple or how to make civilization or agriculture. We couldn't just give each other a big long list because we could never remember that and we couldn't write it down. So everything had to come in the form of a story. That's how we got all the important information from each other and shared it with each other. So doesn't it make sense that our brains would come to more highly value story than anything else?
Yeah.
Yes. So guess what? Not much has changed since 10,000 years ago when it comes to that, because we're not evolving that fast. People love stories. And I love the saying from Les Brown again, never tell a story without a point.
Yep.
And never make a point without a story.
Amazing.
And if you did that, you would be one of the most effective leaders in the world.
Yeah.
Just a story
There's a great book out there, Joseph Campbell's A Hero's Journey. I don't know if you've come across that, which is amazing, amazing book. And also as well for entrepreneurs who are trying to get that dialed down into some type of education. Of course, you can speak with John. You can check out what John does here. But there's also a guy called Donald Miller, isn't there? I don't know if you come across Don Miller and StoryBrand.
Brilliant.
Out there at storybrand.com as well. So, but of course, please check in with John. These are just some options for you. So I get it, and stories are there, and it's like I was saying about the cheers thing earlier. You used to go out to work the next day and say, "Hey, what happened there?" and this and this, and people just connect with it, don't they? It's amazing. Yeah. So, we touched on the TED earlier on, but I know you mentioned there's different sort of durations, but why is it such a powerful tool for leadership communication? I know we touched on it earlier in the bio section, John, but just sort of spend a couple of minutes for me, just sort of breaking that down in a 101 of 30,000 foot, why you feel that not why you feel, but why the TED format is such a powerful tool for leadership and communication.
And I'm happy to share that with you and your listeners. And I'm going to tell you from my experience, this is $1 million thing I'm going to share with people. If they listen to this and take it on like it's true, it will absolutely change their life and their leadership. Fundamentally, there's a few pieces going on. Number one, I'll talk about this in terms of a TED Talk and being a leader.
Yeah.
The TED Talk, the number one coaching that I missed on my first one is, what is your one idea worth spreading? Yeah. What is the one main thing? And as a leader, if you think of, okay, right now in this quarter, in this year, in this company, whatever, however you want to slice and dice it, what is your number one idea that you want to get to your employees? And to go through the rigorous work that it takes to actually identify and then communicate that clearly is an unbelievably powerful exercise. One of my friends who worked with Steve Jobs on all those powerful speeches said he thought one of the most important things that Apple ever did was those speeches because they knew they had a deadline coming. Steve had to get very clear on what he wanted to say. And then when he got up on stage and said it, everybody that mattered was listening. The employees, the investors, the suppliers, the buyers, the press, so the fact that he could get everyone's attention and then took it so seriously and did such a great job with it. Wow. That's one of the reasons that my friend thinks Apple was so successful and is so successful. So to boil it down and then be able to communicate it, that's one thing. The other thing is that to really do something that's truly in the TED format, it needs to be authentic. It can't just be, hey, I'm so great. It's got to be, well, yeah, this is great, but before this, you should have seen how I was bumping along the bottom of the river, and then to share, to make it vulnerable and connected and to bring something of yourself to it. All of these things are things that we don't get pushed to do that in business. In fact, we get pushed away from it a little bit, but it's what works. Yeah. And to really think of the TED format for your maybe the next all hands meeting for the upcoming quarter or year, if you were to do one of those, I think you'd be surprised by how much people would get behind that idea and how effective it would be at motivating them to make it happen.
Do you know what, John? It's so real. And, here in the UK, we've just had a new change of Prime Minister. And the final two candidates when they went through the hustings was Boris Johnson and it was Jeremy Hunt. Yeah. And you can argue that there is different sort of, shenanigans going off in the political world and underdealing in the corridors of Parliament. But ultimately, when you look at why Boris Johnson love, hate or neutralise him, it doesn't make a difference. A bit like Trump, you love, hate or neutralise him, whatever it would be. But there is the reason why Boris won. If you look at his campaign, it wasn't any fancy slogan. It was 2 words, back Boris. That was his campaign, back Boris. But his mission were out of Europe, Brexit delivered, regardless of consequence, 31st of October 2019. That was his mission. And it was one thing. There was other political campaign strategies, employment, healthcare, police forces, manufacturing, high-speed rail, all that going off in the background, but there was sort of incidental, and it was deliver Brexit, 31st of October, done, we'll sort it. And where Jeremy Hunt was a little bit woolly about this and woolly about that, and the leader of the opposition still is worried about, woolly around that, a bit ambiguous. And people get it. People say, well, do I want to be out of Europe? Yes, no. Do I want that? Yeah, right, let's do it. And they get it. And so a similar situation is that one thing, isn't it? It really boiling it down and then effectively communicating. And I love the Steve Jobs reference. That's
for sure. I mean, he pushed all those other things to the background by being super clear.
Absolutely.
With that one,
Brilliant.
Yes.
Love it. So last but not least, John, 3 ways to connect and inspire any audience, anywhere, anytime. Just tell us quickly a little bit about those.
Okay, so number 1, you've heard before on this podcast. I'll say it again, Les Brown. People don't connect with your successes. They connect with your messes. Your mess is in your mess. Share where you failed and, importantly, what you learned, and people will not only not think you're a loser for wherever you failed, they'll think you're super self-aware, and they'll want to be around you, and they'll learn from you, and it's huge. That will connect people with you. Number 2, from a guy named Craig Valentine, he says, don't make yourself special. Make the process special. So in high school, Mike, I won every contest I ever entered except one, first, second, or third place in public speaking and debate and all that. And that judge chased me down 2 years later and apologized and told me I should have won. And he was sorry he gave me the loss. So I used to think that's because I was so good. Guess what? That is not what was happening. Here's what was happening. I had a world-class debate and speaking coach at my public high school in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I grew up. And I did anything he asked because I thought he was so cool.
Yeah.
I did not do this purposefully. It was a complete accident. But looking back on it, I realized I had a great coach and I was coachable.
Yeah.
Totally by accident, but it still happened. And that's how I did that. So if I had just told you I won all those contests and said, and now I'm going to talk about leadership and communication, and like people would be like, how do I get out of here? But when I tell you the process, find a great coach and be coachable.
Amazing.
Okay, now that's something valuable for people instead of me just trumpeting myself, right? Because you do have to talk about your successes sometimes. Yeah. But when you identify the process, it doesn't push people away. It actually pulls them in.
Amazing.
Yeah?
Absolutely amazing.
And then the final one that you have heard as well is don't be the hero of your own talk, Nancy Duarte. Don't be the hero of your own talk. Make the audience the hero. Don't be Luke. Be Yoda. A little green lightsaber there. So
that's amazing, John. I'm humbled. The value, I think, is off the charts. I think we've gone through the roof. I think we have a hole in the ceiling today here at the studio. Thank you ever so much for your time today, John. As I say, if you want to check out more about what John does, you can check him out on Twitter at John Bates, website executivespeakingsuccess.com, Instagram handle John K. Bates. Check out John on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/John Bates. And that's JOHN Bates, but we'll put all the links in the show. You can follow the hashtag TED Talks, public speaking, leadership communication. Again, we'll put all those out there. And thanks for sharing, the personal stories about the NASA and the Mason and the EODT team and things like that. I'm embarrassed to ask this last part because I think we've got so much value out of the last sort of 90 minutes or so. But if I were to ask you to condense it down, John, to 3 things that the leaders of today who are trying to aspire to be better, who are keen to apply your knowledge, if we could boil that down to 3 things, I know we've got those previous things. How would you summarize this sort of podcast that people could take away and obviously take action? Because that's what you've got to do, guys. You've got to execute on this. Don't just listen to John. Don't just get motivated by it. Go pick something out of it and execute it, and then let us know, shoot us a show note, let us know how it changed your life, or please let John know as well. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to hear the successes you've had from the guidances give. So how would we distill that into 3 sort of pro tips, John?
So number 1, until you have some sort of an emotional connection, until you're in the same tribe with someone, or you found something you have in common, like even just we both have dogs, it doesn't matter much what it is, but until you have an emotional connection, all of the logic in the world will not matter, and people do not take action from logic. They take action because of that emotional connection. Right. That is so hard to wrap your head around sometimes. I found that very hard to wrap my head around for a while, but it is just, if you took that as fundamentally true and acted on it, it would change your outcomes dramatically.
Brilliant.
And so that's number 1. Number 2 is to remember that they are always mirroring you. And so if things start to go sideways in that meeting, or if that audience seems to not be listening or caring, it's not over there. It's over here, because that's the only way.
The source.
Yeah. How can you give them something good to mirror? And yes, it's good to mirror other people, and you want to, we naturally do that with each other, but never ever let an audience or a meeting pull you out of giving them something good to mirror. Don't ever fall into that trap. Brilliant. So that would be number 2. And then, I think number 3 is something that I talk about a lot, and we didn't talk about yet, but it's pretty simple to just get. You have 2 choices, I think. You could either be responsible for what you say and check the box, I said it, or if you get paid on your results, you could actually go a step further and say, I'm responsible for what they hear. And how would that change the way you speak and communicate? What if you took on, I'm responsible not just for what I say, but I'm responsible for what they hear?
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. So clear. I get it. It's absolutely clear.
Yeah.
Wow. John, I think we're over on the time clock. I apologize sincerely. I know how valuable time is. I know how valuable.
I hope it's okay with you.
Oh, wow, it is. Thank you very much indeed, John. As we start to wrap out, I'll put all the show links below. Please, audience, play this back, apply the knowledge, give John a bit of a shout out as well. He's taken a significant amount of time, not only out of his day, but to get up early to do the show. It's early 6 a.m. in Salt Lake and things like that, or 7 a.m. John, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned so much. Thank you very much indeed. And thanks for sharing your personal treasures with us as well. I cannot thank you enough. And anything that we or the audience can do for you, just let us know. We'll be more than happy to reciprocate. Thank you very much for being on the show.
You're very welcome, Mike, and I appreciate it. And if people go apply this, that's what I would love. And people want to give me a shout out or, put me out, great. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to make a difference.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate it. So as we wrap out of the show, guys, check out the show notes. We'll put all the links in. We'll put the link into John's book. We'll put the link into his new book that's coming out in Q3. There's a new book coming out, and that's going to be Ted Worthy Leader. I'll get that clear, but we'll put the link in there. That'll be due in Q3 2019. It's just about at the printing press getting signed off. And as always, we appreciate you tuning into this episode and continuing your growth engine development. As always, to get in the game, go do the hustle, and more importantly, go make it happen. And we'll catch up with you on a next Open Mic show real soon.
You have been listening to The Open Mic, brought to you by The Success Hub. To find out more and to get the resources we have mentioned in this podcast episode, simply visit blog.thesuccesshub.io and view the podcast section. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you in our next episode. This podcast and associated materials is published under copyright to The Success Hub. All rights reserved. No reproduction of this material is permitted.